My name is Rich Thompson. I'm the Divisional Director of Research here at CPP. I've been at CPP for about 15 years. I do work with all of our assessments, but for the last 5 or 6 years I've been working almost exclusively with the MBTI. My background as a psychologist, we often question the MBTI, but in working with it and learning more about it, I found it to be a very useful and powerful tool. Has great measurement properties and works exactly as it's intended to work. So for the last 30 or so years, the personality measurement, the approach to personality that's been very common in academic circles is something we call the Big Five or the five-factor model. How the Big Five was arrived at is they took all of these other personality measures and factor analyzed them and found that in general, of all the different ways people have thought about personality, there's 5 clumps, 5 chunks that seem to account for most of the measures of personality. What's interesting is that Isabel and Jung had 4 of those 5 identified long before all of this work came with factor analysis. So we were way ahead of the game in terms of measuring important personality constructs long before there was Big Five. If you think the MBTI is measuring nothing, then Big Five is measuring nothing as well. Because the MBTI measures, the 4 that we have, correlate fairly highly with the Big Five measures, except for neuroticism, which we don't address. So the EI correlation is very high. SN is slightly smaller. But if the idea is that MBTI measures nothing and Big Five measures something, the fact that they correlate as highly as they do means that they're both measuring something, and that something is somewhat similar but not the same. People want to learn about themselves and the people they work with. So it's useful for team building. How do you have an effective team? How do you work with people who are different from you, who maybe have slightly different ways of approaching problems and situations? The MBTI can provide insight for that. What about your career? Well, different people have different proclivities and different ways they like to do things, and maybe there's implications there for their careers. And even if, as the MBTI suggests, anybody can do any kind of a job, it provides maybe some information about context. So you might, based on your personality type, it might be that you really are a great accountant, but you might not want to be an accountant for a Big Five firm, and instead you might want to be an accountant for some sort of NGO.